The sky was a dull shade of gray-blue as the mystery machine rumbled across a rusted iron bridge leading into the forgotten town of Riverbend, deep in the Louisiana backwoods. The air smelled of damp wood and moss, and the road was lined with twisted trees draped in thick vines. "We always end up in places like this, don't we?" Daphne sighed, staring out at the desolate road. "Well, it's not our fault that mysteries have a built-in GPS that leads straight to us," Shaggy quipped, clutching Scooby-Doo as if the dog could protect him. "And speaking of which, I don't know how I feel about a flooded, abandoned amusement park." Scooby made a face, his ears drooping. "Rhea, me neither." "Pay attention, guys." Velma adjusted her glasses, flipping through a stack of papers on her lap. Riverbend had a strange flood 3 months ago, and ever since, the old Funland Park has been completely surrounded by water. But here's the weird part. Only the amusement park was flooded. The rest of the town is dry. Now that sounds like a mystery. Fred grinned as he gripped the wheel. "And who called us here again?" "A former park employee, Wallace Greaves. He claims to have seen strange things happening at night. Shadows moving in the water, the sound of machines turning on by themselves, and the creepiest part? He swears he saw a ghost clown floating above the Ferris wheel." Shaggy's face drained of color. "Gee, ghost clown?" I was already creeped out by the idea of a sunken amusement park. But now... "Re too," Scooby whimpered, huddling closer to Shaggy. Daphne frowned, deep in thought. "So, we've got a flooded park, ghost sightings and haunted machines? Sounds like a classic Scooby-Doo case to me." Fred nodded. "Exactly. Let's check it out." The mystery machine finally rolled to a stop at the entrance of Funland Park. The sight before them was something out of a nightmare. A massive rusted iron gate with broken signs dangling from chains, and half of the entire park submerged in still, murky water. The colorful lights that once decorated the rides flickered eerily, as if someone was still trying to keep the place alive. Velma crouched down and pressed her hand against the dry ground. "The dirt here is completely dry, but the park itself is underwater. That doesn't make any sense." "And there's something else weird," Daphne muttered. She pointed toward the Hall of Mirrors, standing on the far side of the park. The once grand glass facade was cracked and covered in grime except for one window, which was perfectly clean, as if someone had wiped it down recently. Fred tested the gate, pushing against it. "Locked. Looks like someone doesn't want visitors." "Great. So we can take that as a sign to leave, right?" Shaggy suggested, already taking a step back. Velma grabbed his sleeve. "Not a chance. We need to find Wallace Greaves and figure out what's going on." Fred grabbed his flashlight and walked alongside the fence until he found a small opening. "Over here, gang." One by one, they squeezed through the gap, stepping onto the flooded wooden walkways of the park. The boards creaked beneath their feet, some of them covered in thick layers of slimy moss. The air was heavy with the scent of stagnant water, and the eerie sound of rusted metal groaning in the wind echoed all around them. Scooby sniffed the air, his tail twitching. "Ruh, I smell something weird." Shaggy gulped. "Weird as in delicious lost cheeseburger weird, or weird as in supernatural horror weird?" Before Scooby could answer, a sharp static hiss filled the air. Everyone turned toward the rusting carousel in the center of the park. Its lights flickered, and suddenly, the ride whirred to life all on its own. Velma's eyes widened. "That's impossible. This place shouldn't even have power." Shaggy took a step back. "Then someone forgot to shut off the ghosts before they left." And that's when it happened. The dark water beneath the carousel began to bubble violently, and a figure slowly emerged from the depths. It was a man dressed in an old-fashioned clown costume, his smeared white makeup giving him a sunken, ghostly appearance. His hollow eyes stared blankly ahead, and his expression was disturbingly still. But the scariest part? He was floating above the water, as if he wasn't even real. Scooby whimpered. "Ruh-oh." The clown raised one arm and pointed directly at them. "The park is still open, but forever." And then, with a flash of blinding light, he vanished. The only thing left behind was the rippling water, and the eerie sound of a distorted laugh, fading into the distance. Shaggy clung to Scooby, trembling. "Gang, Can we go back to solving train and mansion mysteries now? The eerie silence left behind after the ghost clown's disappearance was broken only by the distant sound of water rippling and the occasional groan of rusted metal. The gang stood frozen in place, the tension in the air thick enough to cut with a knife. I wasn't the only one who saw that, right? Shaggy stammered, still clutching Scooby-Doo like a lifeline. Definitely not. Velma adjusted her glasses, trying to keep her voice steady. That was unusual. Fred scanned the area, his mind already racing through possible explanations. It could have been a projection. Maybe someone's using lights and mist to create the illusion. Daphne pointed at the dark water still rippling beneath the carousel. If it were a projection, it wouldn't have made the water move. Something was actually there. Scooby sniffed the air again, his ears twitching. I don't like this place. Shaggy frantically nodded. Dude, neither do I. Let's get out of here before this park decides to offer us a haunted roller coaster ride. Before anyone could respond, a distant bell rang 3 times. The gang stiffened. Daphne turned toward Fred. Was that part of the park? Fred frowned, shaking his head. I don't remember any bells here. Velma perked up. It must be Wallace Greaves. Maybe he's trying to signal us. Following the sound, they carefully made their way across a wooden walkway, soaked and warped from the floodwaters. Every step made the boards groan under their weight. A thin layer of fog drifted over the water, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Shaggy kept his eyes firmly forward, determined not to look at the dark water beneath them, but then something made him stop. That wasn't there before, was it? He pointed to a partially sunken riverboat, floating near the Phantom River ride, an old attraction that once took guests through a dark tunnel filled with eerie special effects. Fred narrowed his eyes. That boat should be docked at the pier. Velma crossed her arms. The current isn't strong enough to move it on its own. Daphne turned to look at the entrance to the Phantom River ride, its gaping tunnel of darkness swallowing the light from their flashlights. You know what I think? If there are any clues, they're inside that tunnel. Shaggy's eyes widened in horror. Guys, did you hear what this place is called? Phantom River. Do we really need to go in there? Fred smirked. If there's a mystery, we have to solve it. Shaggy groaned. Oh sure, solving mysteries is all fun and games, until a ghost decides to turn us into park souvenirs. Before they could argue further, the bell rang again, closer this time. Daphne looked at the riverboat, then at the rest of the gang. Looks like we're going in. Fred grabbed a paddle that had been left on the boat and used it to push the craft toward the tunnel entrance. Scooby, Shaggy, you coming? Shaggy looked at Scooby, expecting his best pal to refuse. But to his horror, the Great Dane was already climbing into the boat, trying to hide behind Velma. Rhea, I don't want to stay out here. Shaggy sighed in defeat and climbed aboard. It's official. We've lost our minds. With everyone in place, Fred guided the boat forward, drifting into the pitch-black tunnel. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Then, without warning, the lights inside the tunnel flickered on. That's impossible, Velma whispered. The walls of the tunnel lit up, old projections of shadowy figures flickering against them, creating the illusion that ghostly silhouettes were following the boat. Scooby let out a nervous whimper. I don't like this. Shaggy tried to reassure him. Relax, Scoob. These are just old park effects. Nothing scary about. A haunting laugh suddenly echoed through the tunnel. Not just any laugh, the clown's laugh. The water around the boat started to ripple as something moved beneath the surface. And then, from the shadows ahead, a white figure emerged. The ghost clown, his hollow eyes locked onto them, his makeup smudged into something almost inhuman. In his hands he held a small golden bell, and he rang it 3 times. Then, the boat started sinking. Shaggy screamed. This isn't part of the ride, is it?
Creeping through the haunted halls, footsteps echo, shadows crawl. Scooby's trembling knees are weak, but a Scooby snack will do the trick. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, Hurrah, where are you? Monsters, ghosts, and clues to pursue. Zoinks and jinkies, what will we do? Stick with the gang, we'll pull it through.